Have you ever tried to stop thinking and couldn't? Even when you're exhausted, even when nothing is happening, your body is still, but your mind keeps running, replaying conversations, imagining futures, analyzing every detail as if the answer is just one more thought away. You tell yourself to relax, to sleep, to let it go. But the silence only makes it louder. Small doubts grow into scenarios. Scenarios turn into fears. And before you know it, you are trapped inside your own head. Most people think overthinking means something is wrong with them, that they are weak, anxious, broken. But what if your mind is not malfunctioning? What if it is overprotecting? What if all this noise is not chaos, but a survival system that never learned when to switch off? Because once the brain believes danger is everywhere, it stops resting. And that is why you can't turn it off. Overthinking is not a malfunction. It is a survival mechanism that has gone into overdrive. For most of human history, the ability to anticipate danger meant the difference between life and death. A rustle in the grass could signal a predator. A strange sound at night could mean an intruder. The brain evolved to assume the worst, because missing a real threat was far more costly than imagining one that wasn't there. Today, the threats are rarely physical, but the system remains the same. Instead of predators, your mind scans for rejection, failure, embarrassment, loss. It replays conversations to detect mistakes, simulates future scenarios to prevent humiliation, analyzes every decision to avoid regret. To the brain, social pain is processed almost like physical pain, so it treats potential rejection as something to be prevented at all costs. This is why your thoughts accelerate at night, when external distractions fade and the mind is left alone to monitor danger. It is trying to keep you safe, not calm. The problem is that modern dangers are ambiguous and endless. You cannot fully eliminate uncertainty about the future, so the mind never receives a clear signal that the threat has passed. It keeps scanning, keeps simulating, keeps preparing. What once protected you from predators now traps you in loops of worry. Two people can face the same uncertainty. One acknowledges it and moves forward. The other tries to think it away and becomes paralyzed. The difference is not intelligence but tolerance for uncertainty. Overthinking feels like control, but it is actually fear wearing the mask of logic. Your brain believes that if it just analyzes enough, it can eliminate risk entirely. Yet life cannot be made risk-free, and so the process never ends. Your mind is not trying to torture you, it is trying to protect you from a world it perceives as dangerous. But protection without limits becomes a prison, and until the brain learns that not every unknown is a threat, it will keep sounding alarms long after the real danger is gone. Much of overthinking is an attempt to control what has not yet happened. The human mind is uncomfortable with uncertainty, so it tries to predict outcomes in advance, as if rehearsing the future could prevent pain. You imagine conversations before they occur, anticipate problems before they exist, replay possible scenarios in search of the safest path. For a moment, this creates the illusion of control, but the relief never lasts, because the future refuses to become predictable. New variables appear, new doubts emerge, and the mind starts the process again. The Stoics understood that anxiety grows when we demand certainty from an uncertain world. You cannot control how people will respond, whether opportunities will appear, or how circumstances will shift. Yet the mind behaves as if total preparation could guarantee safety. In reality, no amount of thinking can eliminate risk. Two people may face the same unknown. One accepts that uncertainty is part of life, the other tries to solve it mentally and becomes trapped in endless analysis. Overthinking feels productive because it resembles planning, but true planning ends with action, while overthinking circles back to doubt. It is motion without movement. Imagine standing at the edge of a forest at night, trying to map every possible path before taking a single step. You would never move, because the terrain changes beyond your sight. Life works the same way. Clarity often comes after action, not before it. By waiting for perfect certainty, you remain stuck in a place that offers none. The brain believes that if it can foresee every danger, you will avoid suffering. Yet this strategy produces the opposite effect: constant tension about events that may never occur. You suffer not from the future itself, but from rehearsing it repeatedly. The Stoic solution is not to stop thinking entirely, but to shift focus from outcomes to readiness. You cannot control what will happen, but you can strengthen yourself to handle whatever does. Once the mind accepts that preparedness matters more than prediction, the need to simulate endless futures begins to fade, and movement becomes possible again. Overthinking often begins where self-trust ends. When you believe in your judgment, decisions are uncomfortable but possible. When you doubt yourself, every choice feels dangerous, as if one wrong step could collapse everything. The mind responds by analyzing endlessly, searching for perfect certainty before acting. You replay options, weigh consequences, imagine outcomes, hoping that more thought will produce absolute assurance. But life does not offer guarantees, so the process never concludes. Instead of clarity, you accumulate more doubt. Each new possibility creates another branch to evaluate, another risk to consider, another reason to hesitate. This is why intelligent people often overthink more. They can see too many angles at once. Yet the core issue is not intelligence, but confidence in your ability to handle whatever follows. If you trusted yourself to adapt, mistakes would feel survivable. Without that trust, every decision feels permanent and catastrophic. Past experiences reinforce this pattern. Criticism, failure, or environments where you were punished for mistakes teach the brain that errors are dangerous. To avoid repeating them, it tries to eliminate risk through analysis. But eliminating risk entirely would require eliminating action, so paralysis becomes the safest option. Imagine a predator preparing to leap, but hesitating because it questions its own strength. The moment of hesitation costs the opportunity. Humans experience the same freeze, not from lack of ability, but from internal doubt. You may know what you want, yet the voice of uncertainty grows louder. What if it goes wrong? What if you regret it? What if you are not capable enough? Over time, this internal interrogation becomes habitual. Even small decisions trigger disproportionate mental effort because the brain is trying to prevent failure rather than pursue progress. Ironically, avoiding mistakes often leads to the biggest mistake of all: remaining stuck. Self-trust does not mean believing you will always choose perfectly. It means believing you can recover, even if you don't. Once that confidence develops, decisions become lighter, action becomes possible, and the mind no longer needs to simulate every outcome to feel safe. Overthinking often replaces emotions that were never allowed to be felt. When something hurts, the natural response is to experience the feeling fully: anger, sadness, fear, disappointment. But many people learn early that these emotions are inconvenient, unacceptable, or unsafe to express. Instead of processing them, they push them down and turn to thinking as a substitute. The mind tries to solve what the heart is still carrying. You analyze why it happened, what it means, how it could have been prevented, what you should have done differently. Yet no amount of logic dissolves an emotion that has not been experienced. It only keeps it active beneath the surface. This is why certain thoughts return again and again, even after you have figured them out. The issue was never lack of understanding, but lack of release. Imagine shaking a bottle of water and then tightening the lid. The pressure remains trapped inside, building over time. Overthinking is that pressure searching for an exit through analysis. The Stoics did not advocate emotional numbness. They emphasized awareness without being ruled by impulses. Acknowledging what you feel allows it to move through you, rather than stagnate within you. When emotions are suppressed, they transform into restlessness, irritability, fatigue, or a constant background tension that seems to have no clear source. You may think you are anxious about the future, when in reality, you are carrying unresolved pain from the past. The mind loops because the body has not completed the emotional cycle. True calm does not come from forcing thoughts to stop, but from allowing feelings to finish. Once an emotion is recognized, named, and tolerated without resistance, its intensity naturally declines. but avoidance prolongs it indefinitely. Overthinking is not always a sign of too much thinking. Often, it is a sign of too much unprocessed feeling. Until those feelings are acknowledged, the mind will keep returning to the same territory, not because it enjoys suffering, but because it is trying to resolve something that logic alone cannot heal. Overthinking thrives in a mind that never experiences real stillness. In the past, human life moved in rhythms: activity followed by rest, noise followed by silence, danger followed by recovery. Today, those boundaries have dissolved. Even when your body stops, stimulation continues. Screens glow, notifications interrupt, information floods in without pause. The brain remains in a state of low-level alertness, never receiving the signal that it is safe to power down. When external input finally disappears, such as late at night, the mind does not settle, it accelerates. Thoughts that were suppressed by distraction rush forward all at once. This is why many people feel calm during the day, but overwhelmed in the quiet. The silence reveals how active the mind has been all along. Sleep becomes difficult because the brain is still processing unresolved fragments of the day, anticipating tomorrow, revisiting the past. In nature, even predators alternate between intense focus and complete rest. Without recovery, their performance declines. Humans, however, often live in a constant middle state, never fully engaged, never fully relaxed. This chronic tension keeps stress hormones elevated and prevents the nervous system from resetting. Over time, the mind forgets how to be idle without searching for problems to solve. It begins to generate thoughts simply to maintain activity. You may believe you are worrying because something is wrong, when in fact your brain has lost the ability to recognize peace as safe. Stillness feels unfamiliar, so it fills the space with analysis. True rest is not merely the absence of work, but the absence of vigilance. It requires moments where nothing is demanded of you, where you are not evaluating, predicting, or